Hello, dear folks. Welcome to the show. Jack Chow on the East-West Show with G&E TV. We have been paying lots of attention to the California drought situation lately because number one is the super importance to us because our water is our basic, right? And versus the fact that we are having a drought that is record-breaking of the past 160 years. Somebody says 130, somebody says 160 or even 65. Anyway, we know that we are having a very, very hard time with our water. So once again, we say that we want to make it a constant call. For those of you who have heard our shows before, you are lucky. For those of you who just turned on to start the first time though, we would have to bring you from bottom up everything about California. Beautiful California is pool water. Right? Okay, joining me today talking about beautiful California with the pool water, ugly water, is my good friend, a authority kind of guy of water of California, whole water, the world big world water. The executive director of California Water Quality Board, Ken Manning. So welcome, Ken, to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
All right, good. Every time before I see you, I feel kind of very thirsty. Now I feel it's time to drink or something. Right, get out. Lately we have a few drops of rain. Somewhere, somehow, it is even more than 3 drops. And people will feel relaxed. Oh, finally we see some rain, all right? Our lovely rain, long time no see. And yet, kind of like right now we're coming back to the hot weather again. So has the rain helped? Has the situation been improved or kind of minimized, whatever?
Well, what you're referring to are some summer rains that we received about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And throughout the state of California, the amount of water that we received varied. For instance, I live out in the Inland Empire, and we received about an inch of rain where I live.
About an inch?
Yeah, and here in the San Gabriel Valley got a little bit more than that. My daughter lives in Central California, and she got over 2.5 inches of rain. So anytime we get rain, it helps. It doesn't take us out of the drought by any means, but it does help. And the reason it helps is because that rain falling on the ground allows us to turn off our sprinklers. And so it allows us to be able to conserve water, which is the real benefit of having those rains, is we can conserve water that we currently are using that is overtaxing our aquifers or our reservoirs. So to that degree it benefits us. It's still a long ways from getting out of the drought. But it does help a lot.
All right, it does help. In other words, not in a big sense. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
So it does give us some kind of little increase on the groundwater, which is below us, right? But does it do anything to raise the level of our aqueduct system?
Well, in that we don't use as much water. For instance, here, let's take, for instance, the groundwater here in the San Gabriel Basin. Normally we use, during the summer, about a half a foot it'll drop about a half a foot every week during the summer months. So the groundwater itself is going down about 6 inches every week during the course of the summer. When we have a rainy situation like that, it only goes down maybe about 3 to 4 inches. So it saves a little bit of water because people turn off their sprinklers. They don't use as much water. It helps us all the way around. But yeah, we've got a long ways before it's going to help us in the drought. I mean, but it does have a temporary effect on our water.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense to me, because if you look back into this summer, starting from early as February or something, we started to see the hot weather, the warm weather trend, all right? And then by the rate of going down 6 inches per week though, we have about 10 weeks already passed, right? So in other words, 1 inch of little water, additional water, doesn't make a big difference, does it?
No, it doesn't. In the overall scheme of things, it doesn't make it, but it does help. Every little bit of rain we get helps. So, but it's not the kind of rain we need to get us out of the drought.
In other words, mathematically, it helped.
Yes.
Mathematically.
Yes.
Because you have at least reduced by 1 inch.
That's right.
Right? But realistically, it doesn't that much.
Yeah, it's like when your gas prices go down 10 cents a gallon. I mean, you know, is it a help? Yeah, it's a help. But is it what you need? No, it's not.
Oh, I see. So this whole summer, the rest of the summer, though, we are looking at another 3 more months, or two, at least 2.5 months of the rest of the summer, though. By the tail, including Indian summer, do we expect anything like what we have?
Well, it's interesting. Later this week, looking at the weather projections for the rest of this week, they're predicting that we might get some of those same kinds of rains that we got a couple of weeks ago.
I see.
We might get some more of those later this week, and those are the monsoonal rains that are coming up from the south, generally brought up by the high pressure zone that brings water up, some moisture up from the Gulf or from Mexico, and it brings it up into Southern California and allows the water to fall. Many times it only falls in the high desert or out near the Colorado River. But if that high pressure pushes it out towards the coast, we get it here in California. So it's not something that we're not used to. We do see that every once in a while. But we did get an exorbitant amount of rain compared to what we normally get a couple weeks ago.
In other words, we do have some hope, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, no,
we don't know for sure. There might be a chance, but yet we're not sure about it.
Yeah, I think they were saying 20% chance of rain Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, 20% is almost nothing. Sometimes when they say, when the weather says 50-50, there's almost nothing.
Yeah.
Right? It means also nothing. Oh, by the way, my audience, is for the last few times with the show, and also with my good guidance of Mr. Manning on the show, we received quite a few positive response about this show. And lots of people say they appreciate us by the fact that we keep bringing the information, even somebody, and especially emphasize on the point that we want to make it a constant call. And some in California wrote, say, hey, the word constant call is what we're missing. So we know we are constantly dried out.
Yeah.
And well, this is one comment. And there is one guy in New York who wrote even in a more funny way, said, we knew we had a lot of snow. We wish we could let you share some, but it's too far, right? You better take care of yourself, California, like that kind.
Yeah, my son lives in New York, and I know what he means. They get they get lots of water.
They have lots of water. They say, well, it's too far. We can't let you share our water. And then the ending sentence said, take care of yourself, California, like that kind.
Yeah.
So, at this show, we try to make it a constant call. The word constant call has received a very highly comment. I believe that's very positive to us. After all, it is a very, I would say, significant that we start to change our lifestyle, right? So, and this is insertion. The insertion to those who wrote us, and here's highly appreciated. So we prefer to see more of your comment, and we like the fact that you join us in the constant call of saving California by saving water, right? So now you mentioned about a summer trend. You mentioned about the possibility of we might have some rain somewhere somehow. Does that mean? I recall this time you mentioned El Nino.
Yeah.
Does that mean part of El Nino or El Nino itself?
Well, we've really been in an El Nino effect this entire year, which is interesting because we were in the El Nino, and this was our driest summer, one of the driest years we've had on history. So El Nino doesn't mean that we're going to get a lot of water. In fact, there's only been 2 years where we've had El Nino conditions where we've received large amounts of water. And that was the 1982-83 drought and the 1997-98 drought. We came out of those droughts in those years with an El Nino event. But we have El Ninos on a regular basis every few years. So not every El Nino means that you're going to get a wet season. What it means is that the conditions are right for us to have a wet season, but it doesn't guarantee that we'll have it. So what we have to have now is, a lot of it depends upon the wind and the high pressures, and a lot of things will determine where that moisture will go. Normally in an El Nino year, the jet stream will move further south, which is really good because then that puts it in the San Francisco to Los Angeles range instead of the Portland to Seattle type range, which means that we generally will have the conditions for wet weather. But we want to have enough wet weather that we get, and it has to be cold enough so that it snows in the mountains. Because where we really benefit is when we get snow in the mountains. Because then as that snow melts over the course of the next 5 or 6 months, it drops that water slowly, and then we capture it into our groundwater
slowly
basins.
redeemed.
That's right.
Into water, and that's a reserve.
Yes, and that's the water that allows us to put water in the ground.
Is that the most idealistic reserve?
Well, yeah, it's the best of the situations. As I mentioned to you once before in our show, if I could design these rainstorms, they would come at a period of about every week to week and a half, and they'd be about a ½ inch of rain. And the reason I say that is because most of the stormwater capture systems in Southern California are designed for flows of a ½ inch to an inch. And so we can capture all of that water in that segment. So if we get about a ½ of an inch to an inch of rain over about a 3 or 4 day period, we capture almost 100% of that water.
All right, my dear audience, let's take a very short moment out. I feel that we are touching a very important point that how we look at our water and how we understand our situation. Joining me, my good friend, Mr. Kenneth Manning. He is the Executive Director of California Water Quality Board. And that's a very high, important position, especially more important at this moment.
Yes.
You're getting more popular because of water situation. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Peace. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. My name is Jack Xiao. I'm on the East West Show talking about water with a water expert, one of the professional, not only, but authority, Mr. Kenneth Manning, Executive Director of California Water Quality Board. Once again, Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack.
Right. I feel better, and by talking to you, I feel I'm almost an expert of water myself. Okay, now we understand not only we have a drought, but also understand that why we're droughted out, right? So now, in terms to get into the situation that's related with El Nino, though, lots of people need some basic, including me. What is El Nino? Where does the name come from?
Well, it's
why we pick up such a name, such a strange name, to describe the situation or whatever, weather conditions. So some basic, please.
Well, the El Nino condition, there's El Nino and El Nino, and the El Nino condition is when the conditions are going to be wet. And essentially what happens is along the equator, the ocean becomes warmer, and that allows more moisture to get up into the atmosphere, and it creates a situation where the moisture then is brought on, and we get the hydrologic cycle, and we're all familiar with how that works.
We like that.
Where we get evaporation comes up, and then the clouds form, and it rains on the land, and that whole sequence. Well, that's what we're hoping for, is that we get a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, and this abnormal amount of moisture, which is the El Nino, will allow us to get more rain on the land. So
1 second. In other words, the word El Nino describes the abnormal situation of those kind of evaporation.
Right.
I see. In other words, in the cloud, there's more water being held there.
Right.
Rather than going on a constant way, in an average way.
Right. This puts an above average amount of moisture in the atmosphere that is allowed to be released over land.
And in the meantime, the ground has dried up.
Yeah. Well, over the last 5 years of this drought, last 4.5, 5 years now, we are in a situation where the land is extremely dry. In fact, if you talk to people who are in the Forest Service and they're seeing a lot of trees dying because they don't have enough moisture in the soil. So we get a lot of these rains, like we had earlier this week, and you don't see a lot of runoff, and so you're not seeing a lot of mudslides and things because the ground and the plants are absorbing all of that water because they are so thirsty. They're drinking it all up. So we're not getting a lot of runoff that we would normally see.
Like those landslides stuff, right?
And so what we need is, during this winter, we'll need a lot of snow, and the snow will build up in the mountains, and that'll take care of that situation, and it'll help us so over a long period of time. But the conditions are there for us.
In other words, with the El Nino situation, weather conditions, we are number one expecting some kind of rain towards the end of the summer or beginning of fall, and into winter. There is probably more snow. Is that what you're saying?
Our normal wet months are November, December, January, February, and into March, and then we start tailing off in April through that time. So we've got about 4 or 5 months during the winter season that we are able to get, that we normally get most of our rain.
From Thanksgiving onward?
Generally, yes.
Okay, from Thanksgiving onward till the coming March?
Right.
I see. That is our wet season?
Yes. That's when the conditions are there for us to get water.
Looking back though, last year during our wet season, we didn't have anything.
Well, we only had a few inches of rain.
I don't recall any rain or any heavy storm of anything.
Well, we had 5 inches of rain over that period of time last year, and that coupled with similar kinds of years of 6, 7, kinds of inches of rain. We need several years of rain in the 15 to 20 inches per year range now in order to help ourselves get out of this drought.
So we're
no one year is probably going to do it.
So we're way too far, right? We're way too far.
Yeah, we have, and it's, as the rain falls and as we need the snow in the mountains, that's going to help us because it fills our reservoirs. But it's going to take years for us to get that water back into the ground and fill up our groundwater basins, because over this period of drought now, we've been using water that we've had in storage. We've been using our groundwater, and we've been importing water from other parts of the Colorado River, Northern California, Mono Lake. Those imported water, all of those have helped us to keep us going.
And the
but we need to replenish all of those.
And the groundwater has a long way to go, according to what you have described, about 1 inch of rain, that's it? And whereas you the whole thing is going to versus the fact that you lose about 6 inches per week.
Yes.
So it's kind of a never catching up
unless
we have something tremendous.
Yeah, and every aquifer is operates a little differently, and there are hundreds of aquifers, or 515 aquifers around the state of California. Many of them are in the desert. About half of them are in areas that have high population areas, like the San Gabriel Valley or the Los Angeles area or the Inland Empire. Those all have aquifers that they draw from, groundwater. San Diego has no aquifers. They have no groundwater in San Diego, all of their water is imported. So they got a little different situation. They have to use all surface storage and imported water for their water supply.
I see. All right. So, and I thank you very much for this kind of basic, because you literally talking about how California water comes, right? And what we want to rely upon. So, and there's also another thing that I would like to talk to you. I don't know, you're not prepared. I don't know if you're prepared or not, but I would say whenever such thing happens, you, the one on the front of the business, must know first, right? It is something I feel very scary, and it is something that I know that you must learn first if it is true, right? Because I read a piece of information about the solar cycle. They're saying within the next 15 years, the solar system is going to enter its kind of relatively cooler cycle for another 100-something years, right? Which is the one every 100 years goes around. At that moment, it causes drier, colder days, weather conditions over the Earth. By then, well, we're saying not only a shortage of water, but also a very cold weather, relatively colder weather. So is that so or not so? I want you, professional, who are supposed to hear that first, to let my audience know if it's necessary to get scared or not.
Well, I have not heard that, and although I understand, if you look back in history, it's only been 10,000 years, which is not that long ago. 10,000 years ago was the end of our last ice age. So we do, as a planet, go through changes in weather. And so it's not unheard of to see these kinds of natural changes in weather. As we discussed last time I was on the show, I do believe that humans are accelerating the pattern of heat in the world, and that we are causing some of this global warming that's occurring, which is changing the weather patterns. I think all of us who have been around for a half of a century or more have seen changes in weather patterns that are somewhat alarming. And so we need to understand and try and fix that as best we can, and understand that those are things there are things that we can control and things we can't. The solar situation, if it does occur, we'll have to adapt to it. We'll have to understand what that means to us when it occurs. But I haven't heard that yet. And there are a lot of people out there trying to speculate on what's going to happen in the future. And this may be just one person's opinion, and I don't know if that's generally accepted.
Or else it might be politics.
It could be.
Yeah, because people on the right keep saying, well, no, it is not a warming, it's not a global warming, whatever. And then with the ice age, they call minor ice age, coming though, instead of seeing warmer weather, warmer planet, we're facing a colder planet. Yeah. So totally there's the denial of the global warming. So could be politics, right?
It could be politics, and everybody has their own, everybody can hire a professional to pretty much tell them what they want to hear. But the bottom line is that we're going to have to see a pattern over a long period of time in order to really make a judgment about how that's going to affect us. I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, so. I'm very sorry that I should have discussed with you prior to the show about this thing, though. While talking, I felt all of a sudden it is quite necessary to check with you, because you're the one supposed to hear that first. You're on the front. Right? Yeah. Such as if anything going to happen with my studio, I'm the one supposed to know, right? So I better check with you before people get scared. Oh my God, we're going to ice out, right? Yeah. So in other words, you saying that you haven't heard that yet.
No, I have not heard that, and so I don't know if that's going to happen. And even if that article was written, it may be speculative about whether it's going to happen or not.
In other words, the global warming is confirmed.
There's no doubt we are warming. Yes.
There's no doubt, right? California has not sufficient water, and we're not seeing lots of water coming. That's the second fact.
Yes, that's right? Over the last 4 years, we've had record drought over 4 years.
All right, very good. My dear audience, today finally I'm having another chance of touching base with whatever is supposed to be the hardcore information about Californian water. California is drying out. We know that for sure. We feel about it, and we have to face it. And that's why about 2 months ago, there is a mandate announced by Governor of California about water saving. And let's see. On one hand, we see expectations or yes or no about the coming water. On the other, we have to check about how we are doing with our water. So with me, my good friend and authority of water, Mr. Kenneth Manning. He is the Executive Director of California Water Quality. So once again, let's take a moment now. When we come back, we'll check about the two trends, how much we're doing and versus how much water we're expecting. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. Jack Xiao on the East West Show with the G&E TV. For sure, honestly, we pay a lot of attention to our California drought. So water. So that's the key. It's our basic, without which we're just dying, right? No question. And lately, we heard about the discovery of Kepler on the a possible planet of 56b or something, and it says it has lots of water on the surface, right? Well, sorry for that. It's 1,400 light years away from us.
It's a little long away.
a little
Yeah.
too low, right? A little too low. And then there might be water somewhere. The Mars, the Earth, the closest to us, Mars has no water at all. It might have water underneath, but we do not know yet. So, water. We have only our global Earth, our planet, and there is only so much water in there. The day the Earth was created, right? And it keeps on cycling from evaporation to the clouds and the falling down the water. It goes again and again like that. So much is the water.
Right.
Right. Now, California is dried out with the weather conditions in his term called the El Nino conditions, whereby too much water is being held by El Nino. When does it give us back? We do not know yet.
No.
Right. That's why we have a mandate announced by the state of California as in a term of law, though, we have to save. We have to shrink ourselves to change our lifestyles to fit into the situation. How are we doing so far with the mandates, please, sir?
Well, once the governor announced his mandates, and once those were ratified and came into law, we've been doing very well. Many of the areas are surpassing the 25%. And so we're actually doing very, very well at this point in terms of keeping up. Now, the little rains we had or a few weeks ago, and hopefully we'll get some more later this week, those all help us because it allows us to turn the sprinklers off. But overall, we're doing fairly well in measuring up to what the governor asked us to do. Again, but it's if we got to stretch it into this winter, we're all hopeful that we get a wetter than normal winter, which will help fill the surface reservoirs and help us then to funnel water into our groundwater. But this is going to take years for us to get over.
Oh yeah, of course. And I would have to point out that at this show, though, most of the time, 100% of the time, so out of 99 out of 100% of the time, we stay neutral with all issues, especially when politics are involved. On this water issue, though, we see no politics at all. So that's why the mandate was passed kind of unanimously, right? So it's a human call, is it?
Yeah, in fact, when I go to Sacramento or when I go back to Washington to work with the policymakers on issues relative to water, I work just as easily with Republicans and Democrats.
Yes.
They all understand that this is not a political issue. This is an issue that needs to be dealt with. And so some of my colleagues were back in Washington this last week working with Senator Dianne Feinstein's office. She's drafting a drought bill right now, and there's some things that we'd like to see in it that we think would help.
All right.
And so we were back talking with them and letting them know what those need to be, and they've assured us that those things will be in her bill. And we're working with other members of both the Senate and the House to try and get consensus on some of the things that need to be in a drought bill. But what we have to understand is that as a state, that if you look over a long period of time, let's say the next 50 years,
all right,
that only 3 out of every 10 years, so literally 15 years out of the next 50, are we going to have wet years. The rest of those are going to be dry.
I see.
So that's the trend that we're going to be, that we are able to predict right now, which is slightly less water than what we have over the last 150 years.
Makes lots of sense, yes.
And so we have to get used to this new trend, and so that means that we have to be a little more conscious about how we use water. So as we talked about in some of the previous segments that we've done, we as a society need to understand that water needs to be used more for our consumption and less for your landscaping.
Leisure.
That's right. And so what we're seeing is the governor responding, and you're seeing people make permanent changes. I see people all the time. I changed out my front yard to a California-friendly planting, and it saved half of my water bill in the first 2 months. So it's something that does make a difference, and you're seeing a lot of people making the choices to go that direction to help save water outside. Is because I said before, between 60 and 75% of the water that we consume on a daily basis is used outside the home. And so that's an area that we need to change. And so California is going to start looking a little bit more like Las Vegas or Phoenix than it has in the past. We've been using water very liberally on outside landscapes. And there are still people who want to continue that green yard, and nobody's saying you can't have it. It just, what we're saying is that you're going to have to pay a lot for it.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I believe it does to my audience. It's because you're looking at a situation of 15 versus 50, right? Only third, or only 10 out of 3. I mean, 3 out of 10.
10 years, yeah.
And 3 out of 10, you're going to be wet, and the other 7, you're still dried up.
That's right.
They're talking about you're unbalanced in a foreseen future, right?
Yeah.
Unless you do something fundamentally change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Nothing going to happen. No miracle is going to happen, because we have, like we said, as a condition. The other day when you first came to the show, you mentioned to me at the time when the earth was created by God, by whoever, by the Big Bang, whoever, we were given that much water. That's fixed amount.
That's right. It's the same amount of water today as the dinosaurs had back hundreds of
Yeah,
millions of years ago.
As a matter of fact, we drink the same
water.
Same water the dinosaurs drank.
That's right.
So the same thing. Now with the weather conditions holding us, and with the trend, we're looking forward to see, for example, the next 50 years, out of which there's only 15 years of whatever reasonable water. So we're facing 35 of dying out situations,
Yeah.
right? Okay, now. And you mentioned about to fundamentally change your lifestyle, saving water by cutting your bills by 50%, right? California mandated to do 25, and how much are we now so far? Between 25 to whatever maximum that we can reach?
Well, statewide, in the month of June, we hit 29% instead of 25.
Oh,
So we actually did better in June than we did than the governor was asking for. So statewide, the average was 29. Now, there were some local communities that did not do that well, but those areas are now responding, and hopefully when we get the results for July, we will show that those areas were able to conserve as much as well. So it appears that everybody is working on the problem, and everybody recognizes the problem. But as we talked about in a prior segments, we talked about agriculture has to respond.
Oh yeah, of course.
Business has to respond.
You took the word out of my mouth.
So everybody's got to respond, because so much water is used in agriculture. 40% of the entire amount of water that falls, 80% that we have access to, of that water is going to agriculture, and so they need to respond, and they are. They're doing. They're making efforts to conserve the amount of water that they're using on their product in order to make sure they get it to market.
Are they in the agricultural front doing also 25, or they have their own proportion to do?
Well, they have their own demands, and they're more of a market kind of a situation. What the governor is asking them for is to use best business practices to try and develop sprinkler systems and drip systems in order to conserve as much water as they can. Agriculture is a large employer in the state of California, and we are the breadbasket for the rest of the country and much of the world. And so we can't afford to just dial back an arbitrary number of 25%. What we have to do is look at the kind of crops that we grow, and maybe there's some things that we shouldn't be growing in California. So we need to make those choices over time, but we can't do that dramatically like we can landscape.
The problem is so obvious that you and I could be convinced, say, hey, Jack, let's cut down water. And then here's whatever you want to understand. I say, yes, I understand. The next day, you see me kind of shrink on my water usage, right? So our potato will not talk to us. Our strawberries will not talk to us. Tomato will not, so they will consume the same amount of water as they need.
That's right.
My dear audience, let's take a short moment out. When we come back, we'll continue finding how much we can still do on base of what we have achieved so far to save ourselves, to rescue ourselves out of the dark hole. So we'll be right back, please. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. Jack Xiao once again getting excited about seeing a better picture than we used to see about 2 weeks ago, even 1 week ago, that we are so far successful with our water situation because we agreed. We made agreement to nature between us and nature and the Mother Nature. Okay, we'll acquiesce. We'll bend over. We know you're stronger than us. Well, let's shrink on our water usage, right? So today, joining me, you're sharing information about our California water. I said in the beginning, beautiful California with ugly water. Is my good friend, Mr. Kenneth Manning, Executive Director of California Water Quality Board. So once again, Ken, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
You never know how appreciative we are about every constantly you come here to join us to lead into the constant call about California water saving. Right?
Well, I know there's a lot of questions. I can't go, I mean, I go wherever I go, people who know I'm in the water industry are always asking me about how we're doing with the water. The same kind of questions you're asking me. I get these all day long from people who see me on the street or talk to me or friends or relatives.
Sure. I have a question to ask. We have in Chinese a proverb to describe how you make friends. We say, when you water your plant, you water the root. Meaning that when you make friends, you start from the root.
That's right.
So when you water your plant, you water from the root. Now, for that, I have a good example. In Arcadia, a friend of mine, Edward Huang, he designed his own house, had it built the exact way with the concept. Speaking of his watering though, instead of using the sprinkler, he kind of laid out those what I call the hose, kind of like thinner than hose, about this size. Okay, in a zigzag way.
Yeah, drip system.
Yeah, zigzag way. And on it, there are holes.
Yeah.
Right. So water keeps coming out slowly but constantly to directly touch the earth.
Yes.
Rather than
rather than just sprinklers.
Sprinkling in the air, though.
Right.
Could that be applied to our? I'm saying, as you are the one who could make the calls, or could convince our legislators to make the call. So could that be something introduced to our agricultural people?
Well, and they do.
They do?
Yes, they do. And as a matter of fact, if you go drive up Highway 5 now, you'll see a number of orchards and a number of crops that are being developed that are using drip systems, and they're specially designed. They're called drip systems. And what will happen is they'll concentrate the flows at the base of the tree, right around at about the drip line of the tree, which is about the diameter of the tree. And so they'll have water that will flow there rather than the flooded irrigation that they used to have in the past, where they basically just direct large flows of water. You're seeing less and less of that and more of the drip systems going in. But the capital cost associated with putting in a drip system is expensive, so they can't do it all at once. They have to do it over time, and so you're seeing more and more of it as they're putting in new orchards or new crops. They're putting in better irrigation systems for that particular crop.
A question, maybe a good question, or even better question on this whole thing though. I mean, the whole issue. Is that a burden of the farmers, or is that a burden shared between the farmers and the, like say, your authority, or even with the state?
Well, in some cases there are funds available from the state and even some from the federal government to help them develop those irrigation systems, but none of them are, nobody's going to pay them 100% of the cost. Some of those are matching funds, and they may be 25% matching funds or 50% matching. None of them are more than 50%. So they all require some capital funding from the farmer themselves. So they have to recoup that in the cost of the product, or if they have a savings in water, they recoup it in savings in water.
I'm so glad to hear that, because as long as a matching fund by whatever portion, right, and it's better than nothing.
Yes.
Right. And I was asking exactly because I thought about it's going to be a financial burden extra to the farmers who are already sucked up.
Yeah.
So with that, of course, we can make it a constant call to see that it's kind of proliferated in the whole area of agriculture, so that we can help altogether. Understanding one condition, that we whatever use in our day-to-day life only takes about 5% or something out of the total quantity of water, right?
Approximately that.
Yeah, approximately. They use the biggest amount.
Yes, agriculture uses the largest amount outside of nature.
Yeah, sure.
Outside of nature.
For them to
Nature
tighten,
uses
like say, by
50%.
5%,
Yeah.
when compared to our tightening of 25%,
Yeah.
well, they're still going to be bigger, much bigger than us.
Yes.
Am I right?
Oh yeah,
So-
absolutely. And if they are able to save 5 or 10% of the water that they use on their crops,
That'd be
that goes a
huge.
long ways to helping us for future, because we don't have to. It's just not thinking about today and tomorrow. We got to think about our future generations that are going to be here in 50 to 100 to 200 years.
I see.
They need to have the same water available to them. So we need to start developing the technology and the systems to allow them to enjoy the same quality of life that we enjoy
All
today,
right, very good.
just modified
All
based
right,
on the amount of
good,
water.
good. All right, all right. You mentioned about the 50 years down the road, right? To stretch the whole issue into a longer run, longer time span, though. Last time you mentioned about desalinization, right?
Right.
So how is the future of that?
Well, I think you're going to see more and more desalinization in the state of California. Now, right now, there are 12 desalinization plants operating in the state of California, and there are at least 12 in permitting stages right now to be built. The largest one is down in Carlsbad, and it's for the San Diego Water Authority. Remember, I mentioned they don't have any groundwater.
They don't have groundwater, yeah.
So they're using that as their insurance policy, and and the amount of water that they'll be able to develop from that desal plant will provide them about 8% of their total needs in the San Diego Water Authority
see.
area, which is mainly the city of and the areas around San Diego.
The metropolitan area.
Metropolitan area of San Diego. So that'll provide them with an insurance policy against water they can't get maybe from the Colorado River, which is where they get most of their
Assurance or
supply.
insurance?
Insurance.
Insurance.
It's like an insurance policy. If for some reason there are shortages on the Colorado River, they can maximize their desalinization.
I see.
And I don't think this is the last large plant. We're going to see many large plants built in California over a period of time, because the amount of water that's off our coast we can't ignore. It's there, and the technology is there for us to be able to turn that into fresh water. We see this a lot in the Middle East. Israel has a large percentage of their water is desalinization. Saudi Arabia, Dubai, a lot of these countries are developing the technologies that we can take advantage of here. But yet today, still the cost of that desalinization is higher than the imported water cost.
How much higher?
Oh,
by ratio, by proportion.
Imported water runs somewhere between $800 and $1,000 an acre foot. Desalinization runs around $1,600 to $1,800 an acre foot.
About twice.
So it's about 75–80% more to go with desalinization. But over time, we're seeing the increase in imported water because of the scarcity.
You're right.
So it's not too many years out that I think that desalinization is going to make much more economic sense than it does today.
Exactly. The per pound of water, the per pound or per gallon of water cost is increasing on one hand. We know for sure.
Yes.
Right? Because we pay more and more every time as we go to increase the price, the cost of per gallon of water. In the meantime, though, the desalinization from the seawater, so could probably someday they will come even.
Yeah, and in most cases, people are paying more for bottled water than they would for desal water.
All right. Okay.
The amount of money that we're paying, if you go to Costco or any other retail outlet and buy a case of water, the amount of money that you're paying, say about $4 a case, that's still more money than what it would be to desal that same amount of water and put it in your tap system.
I pay $4.29 for a 24 pack. No, 12 pack.
Yeah.
For a 12 pack at 7-Eleven. Right?
Yeah.
So now, is the technology very complicated itself?
For desalinization?
Desalinization?
No, it's not. It's not complicated in concept. In essence, what they have, if you've seen, there's filters, microfiltration, and what they do is they force the salt water into these filters, and through these filters, and as the water goes out through the filters to the outer rim, it becomes more and more pure. And so they run these through these filtration systems, and that desalinization process is just basically, and that's why the cost is so expensive, because the power to run at high pressure.
Is it because the molecules of salt and molecules of chlorine or something, whatever, has in the seawater bigger than the molecule of water?
Well, the molecules of water will go through the filter, but the molecules of salt and other chemicals do not go through.
They're bigger.
They're bigger, and so they will get caught up in that filtration system. And by the time the water makes it out to the outer rims of those filters, that water is drinkable.
I see, I see. So except it costs a little more than what we are paying now.
Correct.
Right, okay. My dear audience, is to bring that fact of desalinization to you is that to let you know that we are not reaching the end of the world. Right? We have a line of rescue till the very end of the day, right? Very end of the day. Yet that doesn't mean we can take it easy.
No.
Right? We cannot not afford to take it easy. California water is so limited that we have to still shrink ourselves to the bottom, to the very bottom though. Last time you mentioned about lots of sources available to help our audiences, our residents, to save water. And you have a website.
bewaterwise.com.
bewaterwise.com. And where you have those offers and
yes,
please.
Well, there's a number of on the website bewaterwise.com. If you go to that website, you'll know that there'll be a lot of suggestions on ways that you can conserve water. Plus, there's information about rebate programs for low flush toilets, or for shower heads, or for washing machines to change out those kinds of things. Also for timers for your irrigation system, smart timers that look at the weather and they look at soil moisture, so that you don't water during times that you don't need to. All of those things, there are rebates available to help offset the cost of those things, to encourage people to do those kinds of activities.
I see. The website address is bewaterwise.com.
Yeah,
right?
bewaterwise.com.
Okay, bewaterwise.com, easy to find, and there are information you can consult. There are questions, okay, you get answered, and there are even devices. Am I right?
Yes.
Devices available, like the
sprinklers and shower heads, things like that.
You mentioned about the smarter sprinkler?
Yeah, smart controllers.
Smart controllers.
And what these controllers do is they actually communicate with satellites, and actually they'll have probes that you can put into the ground that will actually test your soil moisture.
I see.
So if your sprinklers are set to come on at 10 o'clock at night, and it detects that the moisture of your soil is still wet, it won't come on.
I see. All right. Good,
and so
good,
it keeps you from wasting water.
All right. Good. I recall a friend of mine, Ed Wong, his son won a competition of drawing. And in his drawing, and a guy with a backpack going to school, he turns over, all of a sudden, runs to his home to shut the sprinkler off because he was drizzling.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that he won a big prize.
That's good.
All right. Good. Which is concept we started from childhood, right?
Well, and a lot of the education you're seeing about water is being directed at kids in school. We've learned over time that if you educate the kids will educate the parents.
Yeah, of course.
And those lessons will last
it's kind of mutual,
forever.
Mutual efforts, right?
Yes.
All right, my dear audience, we're going over time, but yet it is worth our while to go over. Okay. Now, my good friend, Mr. Kenneth Manning, Executive Director of California Water Quality Board, is joining us and shared his information about California water. We call it Water Up to Date. On this big screen, you see Our Water as our title, which is our lifeline, our very basic. We do, as a conclusion, want to say that beautiful California versus the ugly water is really something we want to make a constant call, that we want you to join us in the fight against our shortage of water. So thank you for watching, my dear friends, and to my good friend Ken Manning, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right.